Another completely redundant Inmendum video. Yay! Yeah, sorry. Probably. Probably been over most of this stuff before. Just different little subjects, I suppose, and we'll see which ones I get to. I just did watch a couple of Boundless Eyes videos, and irritating. But anyway, first we'll do Quintica, that horrible person. Made some sort of video. I don't know what it was really. He just playing the game, right? I mean, I've been on YouTube for 10 years now, almost, and making mostly political and philosophical arguments for a certain kind of efficiency and function, in our politics or in our ideology, our way of looking at what it is to be alive. His accusations are always these petty, somehow my philosophy doesn't match my personal life or some kind of bullshit like that. So anyway, the two parts I saw, so he had a whole thing because I react when I'm engaged with a woman. It's awkward for me personally. But there's no indication that I can't have a philosophical conversation with a woman or any of that kind of stuff. Obviously, I've been able to, fuck you, cunt. I can say that to a woman, as well as a man, or appropriately, you skanky dick, whatever the thing would be. And but anyway, I'm just saying there's no hypocrisy in the sense I haven't sold out. I'm not married to a religious kook or any of that kind of stuff. I never slept with a religious woman. I've never done anything, whatever, to cheapen my existence in that kind of way in terms of being sleeping with the enemy, so to speak. And so, but my feminism is kind of overtly political. I mean, my argument is women have a lot of fortunately, I mean, they carry huge burdens. Having a period, having no penis, and getting pregnant is three huge, monstrous, horrible things that women have to deal with and incorporate into some sort of functional life. And I respect that. And I respect the history where men use their aggressive emotions and their physical strength to keep women on a leash, so to speak, control. And that's a history. It's a real history. And the mindset of it isn't completely out of our system. We're still infected by that history, in my opinion. And we should take steps to keep ourselves mindful of that. And that would be the extent of my feminism. I'm for protecting women. Women should have the right not to be raped, and they should have the right to be able to go places without the threat of being molested by males who think they're entitled. So anything that discourages male entitlement and provides a mechanism to protect women, I'm for. Even if it came to having every male with ankle bracelets on their ankles, I don't see the being accountable as individuals is something I'm for. And people find the threat of they're watching me. Yeah, well, maybe they should be, because it seems everybody must be cheating or something because they're afraid of the inspector. I mean, theoretically, I'm just distracted by Trump's concern that the IRS looks into his finances when he doesn't pay federal taxes for 20 years, and he finds it bothersome that they would bother to look at what games he might be playing. But why would you find it a threat if you're not fucking around, right? If you're not cheating, why would you worry about it? If you're not breaking the rules. Anyway, side subject. So he's using this argument as if somehow my feminism is in doubt, or some sort of hypocrisy regarding my feminism. I mean, feminism is just basically supporting good legislation that protects women from harassment. I'm for that. And I'm for men having to negotiate contracts with women and taking responsibility for those contracts. So yes, if you impregnate a woman and make a baby, yes, you're on the hook. So you better get in writing beforehand that it's her intention to take responsibility for any pregnancy that might develop or whatever the circumstance would be in terms of what happens if certain failures happen and what the expectation is regarding having abortions and all that stuff. And we now have the capacity to do all of that stuff, and you could record the conversation even. Not difficult to negotiate a good contract. And so these men who want to complain about the contract because they didn't negotiate a good one, what is that but whining? So, but it's a real burden, children, having them, actually producing one, and then the care and maintenance of them is a huge responsibility, and, you got to take responsibility for playing a role in that, or in some way enabling. But anyway, so whatever. So my feminism isn't in doubt. Now the fact that I'm a crude person in some respects is a fact, and maybe even rude. But I mean, again, Quintika's trying to make it into something, and it's nothing. I mean, I talked to Mike, Bayul, I said things like, I'd like to rub your hiney or something, and I'd like to molest you. I think I even said that. It wasn't completely insincere, and sometimes you say things to women that maybe it is inappropriate, but it's just functionally it's a little bit difficult to turn off your realization, recognizing women for what they are. It's like when you see a donut or something, and maybe you don't eat donuts, but is there junk food? But it's hard to look at them without saying, donut, Homer Simpson. The Homer Simpson syndrome takes over. And you just sit there and drool a little bit. So sometimes women make me drool. I don't think that makes me a non-feminist. So anyway, I think it's just such a silly and bogus and idiotic argument. But that's all of his arguments are silly, bogus, thin, weak, petty, cheap, tacky, and crappy. And he's the guy hiding behind a rock. He has to hide his appearance. He has to, fake everything. And he talks about other people's sincerity. Right, all these fake people, throwing stones at other people's sincerity is ha ha, LOL. I'm laughing out loud. Anyway, so then the second argument was about this, bringing up this cult religious thing that somehow the philosophy I've expounded or talked about, and the way I've talked about it has some sort of religionness to it. As if there's some sort of dogma or some sort of handed down or some sort of edicts from the ether. No, they're all just logical arguments about what the real consequences of evolution and determinism is. Overtly called us robots. I mean, it's, I don't think there's any religious theory that, has within it some theory that we're robots, just programmed robots. I don't think so. So, I mean, it's just such a insanely ludicrous accusation to make when we know what religiosity usually involves is supernatural, human aggrandizing, ego-boosting kind of themes, and nobody seriously calls religions something connected to evolution, determinism, and robotics, and mechanisms. And it's just another petty, cheap, blah blah blah, and so he has an excuse to use some kind of cult word, as if again there's absolutely no evidence that I do anything at all to engage with my flock and to fondle them into dependency on me, any of the cliche cult leader behavior. None of it's apparent or existing in my behavior. So again, just another stupid, petty, cheap, just obnoxiously ignorant and inaccurate analysis. And so, but who really, again, you shouldn't even have to make these arguments when they come from such glaring and grotesque hypocrisy. Because he actually said something about me having a strike on my account. And oh, people shouldn't do that. It's like, this is the guy who basically attempted to sabotage a guy where he works. Who ratted on conference report, so to speak, and who, from two witnesses I have anyway, have told me that he told them that, he did call the cops and had them come to my door. So, I mean, his hypocrisy is, beyond question. And, it's obvious and overt and so aggressive, and, and yet he'll say it. It's like Trump saying, "I love women," or something. Yeah, not that you don't respect them, though. So love without respect, what is that but lust? Right. Anyway, just a stupid video. So I haven't watched the second half because it's just obnoxious. We shouldn't have to accept the indignity of these kind of trolls. Just the lowest form of human life. So anyway, so I will talk about a little bit on the feminism. The very fact that this happened because of what's her name? Ethological, I think. Yeah. And the thing where I made a line like, "Well, if I knew you were a girl," I didn't really mean it the way that sounds. Like I would have treated you nicer if you were a girl. That wasn't the point. The point sort of was, when you see a guy who's being pussy, okay, it's irritating. So there's been a whole chain of those kind of people, like, no offense to Love That Soy guy, but, the different characters have showed up, and then they'll talk to some asshole like Greytex or something. It's like even Logic Rolls the Dice. All these people, they're just a little bit weak, in terms of their intellectual rigidity or solidness. And so one of these talkers gets to them, and they flop. And it's just kind of a girly thing to do. It's just kind of pussy. And it pisses me off. I hate flip-floppers. I know that's a political term now, but I hate these people who talk and then change their mind every 3 months. I mean, it's just bogus. If you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, shut the fuck up. And so it was more of a reaction to the fact. And so anyway, so women, I cut them slack on that, because women are definitely, it's intimidating to go on the internet and speak your mind as a woman on the internet. And the numbers demonstrate that. And the role that's safe for them to play is be, dumb and cute. The safe role isn't be annoying and obnoxious, and certainly don't be right, because that'll really get you in trouble. You know what I mean? So that's the only thing. That's my affirmative action is that I tend to cut women a break in terms of being intimidatable, because they've been doing it for centuries, and unfortunately, and it's a bad habit, so hard to break, so to speak. That's even a dicey philosophical subject in terms of feminism. I just don't think we're there yet, where it's just as easy for women to do something like what I'm doing as it is for a man, without being threatened by a lot of crazy people on the internet. And the threats are kind of real. They happen in the real world. You see it play out. Anyway, so that's enough on that, I think. This is so tedious. So anyway, somebody posted a comment on the crappy board. It's usually crap. About virtual reality, and I don't want to really talk much about virtual reality. But he's doing it in the Westworld kind of sense, which is more like the transhumanism, or making robots or something that would be more human-like and all that kind of stuff. And to me, it's just a waste of resources. Our senses are so easily fooled. A little bit of some chemistry, the right drug, and plug an iPod in, and you can synthesize our environment, the world we live in. I used to have dreams where I was actually in the game Tomb Raider, and I remember one particular scene in the original Tomb Raider where the character meets the inverse character. You move right, it moves left. Everything's exactly the opposite, and the skin's reversed, and so it's this flesh representation of the character. Really an interesting room. And I remember having dreams about that interaction, because it was those dreams were just as real as if they were more real humans. So it's like we don't need much information to create a very interactive thing in our brain. So you don't need the resources that you need to create an actual castle with actual nice food and actual servants and actual, all of the actual infrastructure. It is preposterously expensive, and it's costs nothing, to burn a DVD, so to speak. And once you write the software, it's written forever, and that's all we're really running on is a simulation, and you can do that for pennies a day. So there would be no point, in my opinion, of having any kind of transhumanist kind of virtual reality, holodecks or something. It's just way too complicated. It's just much easier to put it right inside the brain and do that kind of work. Head that direction. Just fool the senses. If anything else, just fool the senses. Sensual deprivation, and just flood the senses with synthetic data would be a better way to create the virtual better life. But again, the whole thing is just dependent on our egos and playing out like we're somehow entitled to a future because we had a past. And that gets me back to the Boundless Eyes, one of the Boundless Eyes videos. Because she was making excuses about, she was talking about vegetarianism, and it was it's the kind of arguments I find kind of weak, where they're all focused on what, human behavior, and absolutely no judgment passed against any kind of natural circumstance. So it's okay for lions to torture animals. And I think she even believes that somehow meat eating was some kind of critical factor in human evolution, which I think is just a preposterous lie. We were clearly eating more vegetable matter than meat throughout all of the history of the humanoids that we are. Now, Neanderthals and other kinds of subspecies ate a lot of meat, but they're the failed species, not the winners. The winner was eating wheat a long time, eating grass for a very long time. Seeds. We're more baboon than lion, for sure. But anyway, mostly vegetarian. And meat just was a distraction. It had nothing to do with our bigger brain. It's just all crap. And bigger doesn't mean anything anyway. The real difference is how the brain is configured in terms of being able to do language. So it's really about memory space, and not about having it. It's how you utilize it. And I think I've sort of made these arguments in the past, but I think it's kind of obvious that some of our senses are much duller than the other mammals. We can't smell things 100 feet away. We can't do a lot of things. And I think it's the application of that brain space, the brain space that would be doing odor analysis, has been devoted to doing vocabulary storage, and that's why we're able to do language. But anyway, nothing to do with me. So anyway, her video is just one of these kind of things, like, again, like nature can kill all day long and all night long, and it's okay, but there's something wrong about humans doing it. And then she said it's not even about the killing. It's it was just such a weak vegan argument that I don't even know why they bother making it. It's so weak. In terms of having any real appreciation for the suffering of suffering. I mean, whether I get killed by a lunatic or I get killed by somebody on a mission, to save the world, or, I mean, it doesn't really matter. the how and the fact. It's going to be a how and a fact. And it's almost like she has one of these delusions, that living on a little local farm as an animal is so much nicer than living on the factory farm. And I think if you visit enough farms, you'll see that there's huge neglect on little farms, horrible conditions, overcrowding, all kinds of nasty shit. The job just doesn't get done because it's not a business that's actually works. So lots of not goodness happens. But they kind of think you can do this all holistically. I can holistically imprison an animal, torment it, and it's almost like this stupid feral cat argument that I want to really make some videos about. Let's cut their nuts off and throw them back on the street to get run over by cars, and that's a wonderful solution. And it's exactly the opposite of a solution. Way the opposite of a solution. When you anesthetize them to cut their nuts off, you just don't let them wake up. That's the solution. Throwing them back on a street to get run over is just plain dumb, and to live 3 fucking years. I mean, idiotic. Tormented and struggling to find food, eating garbage, licking candy wrappers on the sidewalk, living a horribly undignified life. Yes, human beings can survive on garbage dumps. Proven fact. But they shouldn't survive on garbage dumps. They shouldn't live beneath their dignity. And neither should animals. And, this whole life bullshit is just such bullshit. So anyway, I find that a little obnoxious. I mean, it's just, I just don't... Whatever. Fine, you're a vegan who kind of is sympathetic in the right circumstance for some animals or something like that. And, but I just, I don't find that very tolerable. Then her other video was something about the ego thing and, using Buddhism as a way of finding some sort of beacon, signpost that'll help you get past your distractions because you're a personal feely thing that needs a little bit of comfort. Those arguments work in the sense that somebody can keep pointing out to you all day, well, there's people starving in China, there's people with, inflamed fingernails that never get treated, and, you can go through all this stuff that's happening in the world and how, how you have it so great, and so you can guilt somebody into feeling not so bad about their function or something and be more motivated or something. But, it's a negative argument, in my opinion. You shouldn't have to resort to that. In terms of playing the game with yourself and motivating yourself not to be too much of a selfish pig. But a large concession has to be made to the fact that that's what we are. She made some argument about how we're, social animals, and I'd say that's, in some sense it's true, but I mean, more and more humans have learned, how to be very functional with a synthesized social life. So you don't need to really be social. Frankly, you just need interactive. You need a world that does something so you can play and chase. I mean, that's probably most of the social interaction for males anyway. And that gets into a whole other subject of maybe the social bonding stuff might be a woman thing. And we could say that's a Venus planet kind of thing. And, men are, I don't know, fuck you. Yeah, I mean, where are the white women at? I mean, men are just, they're playing a different game, largely. More, the idea of a rogue female doesn't really work. The idea of a rogue male, yeah, you can get that. I can get that. Because I feel pretty roguey. So anyway. So the other thing that I think, I just don't want to leave something unsaid, but I just don't see Buddhism isn't an answer to anything. It doesn't have any solutions to any real problems in the world. The solution is try to die in a fire, and that's the extent of their brilliant problem solving. So I don't see any real evidence that their heightened or elevated state of mind, their detachment from their personal egos, has demonstrated in any way in the world any useful effect. India's a mess. So it's not a very good example of the philosophy at work. So anyway, right, so it sort of just relates to what we are as brains. And then, like I said, there was a part in the vegetarian video where she was talking about evolutionary history, and that somehow this is an excuse, that she said something like it's vital to our evolutionary history or something, and the way we turned out or something. And it's like, who cares? That provides no excuse for what we are, what we do. And you have to take account for what you are. I mean, if you are a disease-carrying tick, you have to say, oh, shit, I pulled the wrong straw, right? I suck. You just have to admit you suck. You're just a terrible little problem causer. And the fact is that we're very high maintenance. Our delusions of function are just that, delusions. We aren't very functional. We make messes. We clean up less than half of them, would be my estimate. We're emotional basket cases. We just need machines. And there's just no reason to keep feeding the machine. And you don't make more of the vending machine that is human. The human vending machine consumes and shits, and annihilates the environment, and does all kinds of horrible things. It's a shitty machine. If we were actual square machines, and this is what we did, and we did it at this huge expense, every human, to maintain your piece of the biosphere, you're going to kill 1 billion creatures in horrible ways. Hugely expensive. And for what does it do? It sings okay sometimes, does a little dancing maybe, some poetry, and it fucks things, and it farts. And, I mean, it's just not a spectacular machine. It doesn't give any gift to the universe. So yeah, you unplug the fucking things. You don't sit there and make more of them. So it gets to this whole what we really are, and then so anyway, that just led me to thoughts about another comment. Like, I think Piro made one of his stupid videos about the hard problem. He didn't use that phrase, I don't think, but why are we conscious? Or somebody said it was either, I think it was him. It might have been Hofstadter, but the two of a little bit of that conversation came up. That's it, really old. In my opinion, I annihilated and finished that subject years ago with the reason why we're conscious is because it fucking works. Duh. I mean, the idea of why we're not since it is all going to be since all of our decisions are pre-made by our life experience, why bother with the two parts of the brain, so to speak? And the reason why you bother is because they do two things. They specialize. And having a machine that specializes makes it more functional, generally speaking. So that's what makes the programming work, is the very fact that it synthesizes the word no in such a way as the other computer takes that word seriously. So I guess part of what I would say is we know we have to adapt to different environments. We have to adapt to being born in different tribes, in different cultures, in different circumstances, and that adaptation, the ability to adapt and to improvise based on your personal learning experience, is vital to our function. In terms of why we succeeded and other animals failed, was the very thing that this kind of brain gives you, which is huge adaptability, because there's no pre-written hardwired programming besides you're going to want to fuck something, who knows what, and you're going to have to eat something, could be anything, that kind of thing. It gives you the minimum, and through your life experience and your maturation in learning, you adapt to the environment or the culture or the parents or the whatever. And that makes us a powerful machine in the sense we do this process of being, learning is probably a wrong way to say it, but we're programmed by a specific environment, and we can adapt to that environment or through that environment. And vital to that mechanism, in my opinion, is the fact of these two brain functions of creating a value-generating machine that creates these sensations, and that's the value we have to react to. So the brain takes an environmental circumstance where value has to be placed on things because it doesn't have any intrinsic value, and our brain has to give those things in the environment value. So it has an intrinsic value creation engine. It intrinsically can make value and then place it on things. And that the thinking brain reacts because it has to, because it is urgent, because the feelings are meaningful and important and substantial. So you can't synthesize that with hard wiring. Learning is a very specific kind of function, and I would argue that the only way you can learn is there has to be some device that can say right answer, wrong answer. And right answer, wrong answer is essentially the same thing as saying good and bad. It's essentially creating pain and pleasure. It's reward and punishment. You have to reward right answers, and you have to punish wrong answers for you to actually learn. And that's why the mechanism works. Now, whether you could synthesize that in some other way, where you wouldn't actually have to create something that was actually painful, I would argue that that might not be possible. That you might have to actually create something that's really valuable for the program to be really paid attention to. For it not to just take shortcuts, because it doesn't matter. It figures, see, if it's smart enough to figure out how to build a bridge across a river, then it's going to be smart enough to figure out, hey, it doesn't matter whether they feel good or bad because feelings don't have any meaning. See, if the feelings weren't visceral and real, and if they don't mean anything and you can understand they don't mean anything, then it doesn't matter whether 500 people fall off the bridge, right? It doesn't matter if whatever happens. So the brain would figure out that it doesn't matter, feeling good, feeling bad. So someone has to make feeling good and feeling bad distinctly different. Like you can't mistake them. That you can't ever think it'll be fun to be eaten alive. And we really can't imagine that as being possible because the feelings are so loud and clear. And without that clarity, the programming would just say, any agenda you come up with for me will never sound sincere. You could say, it's important that you survive. If that's all it says is, it's important you survive, you're going to say, why is it important? And if I can't say, because of torture, or something like that, then I'm not going to have an argument. The only thing I can make an argument out of is I have to place value. I have to say there's something valuable at stake. Or the brain will just say, I don't need to build the bridge. If torture is not at stake, if the welfare of feeling things aren't at stake, there won't be any reason to build the bridge. There won't be any reason to jump in front of the car to save somebody, or all the things we do that would be that are part of our the dynamic that made us successful. The caring and the loving and all that bullshit. So, I didn't do that perfectly, but I think the point is made, is that we're conscious because it works. We're conscious because there needs to be a mechanism that can't be defeated. And you just can't defeat torture. You can't make it go away. You can't make it mean nothing. I'm saying you in the sense of except Haftaladeh. Okay, anybody rational. Now, psycho killers, sociopaths, yes, they can make it go away. Okay, except their own, of course. But for everybody else, you understand that that's a key ingredient to what it is to be conscious, is that you can't make the meaning of sentient torture, especially your own, go away, not mean anything. You'll never willfully walk into a bucket of cancer. No, you'll drink it or something. You'll not do that unless there's some purpose accomplished. You will not endure unpleasantness unless there's purpose. Unless there's some better unpleasantness to be prevented, or some, perceived good, which is a satisfied ambition or desire, which again is a negative state corrected. So anyway, I think it's probably enough of a rant. So just stuff that was on my mind, and I should make individual videos on these individual subjects, but I have kind of done that, been there and done that, and so yeah, I don't want to be redundant, and there's work there's just so many things I'm doing, but in terms of writing and the websites and all this other kind of crap, lots of stuff to work on. So anyway, I think that's enough. Yeah, that's mainly the stuff I'm thinking it's mainly, but probably I didn't make a list. See, I gotta do that too. I gotta remember to write it down when I think of it, the things I have to respond to, because there are little things people say, and I say, okay, you gotta remember to say something about that, because that's bullshit. But anyway, I know. Until next time, and such, and so forth and whatnot.